Thank you, Maria. Um, Hello and welcome, everyone. We are thrilled to have you here for today's webinar titled Careers Outside Academia. We'll get started in a few minutes while we wait, and please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, location, the organization that you're affiliated to, and what brings you here today. Also, a gentle reminder to keep your microphones muted during the session unless you're speaking. Thank you. Now, I would like to request my co-moderator, Dr. Maria Alejandra Jaramillo, to formally begin today's session. Over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Divya Dib. Welcome to our webinar, Careers Outside Academia. This is help organized by the Capacity Building Committee at the Association of Tropical Biology and Conservation. The Capacity Building Committee is interested in working with those young students and young professionals to give them or to share tools that would furthermore your careers, our careers. We have many of you through life, and many of us through life have questioned what is outside academia because we started in the academic world in the university. So it's difficult to figure what are those possibilities outside academia and what are the tools that will make us succeed in that environment. So we have to put together a set of speakers from all around the tropics who will share with us their journey and some tools and opportunities outside academia for those of you that are interested to learn some about that. I'll share a poll and we'll see how we do afterwards. Okay. So I guess we're ready to continue. Well, it seems like the large majority of people here are seeking or willing to seek positions outside academia. Great. Let's say now Divya Deep will introduce our first speaker.
Thank you, Maria. Let me now introduce the incredible panel of 5 speakers from different continents and professional ecosystems we have invited today, who are constantly creating a positive impact in their respective fields. Dr. Samir Kumar Sinha, Chief Ecologist at Wildlife Trust of India; Dr. Mayuk Chatterjee, Regional Field Program Manager, Mainland Asia, Chester Zoo, UK;
Sorry, Dipyadeep just went mute. Is it just me or?
No, yeah, seems is frozen.
All right, okay.
Okay,
Oh, no. I
so
think there's some issues.
there you go.
I'll just continue. Dr. Carolina Murico, Conservation and Restoration Consultant and Editor-in-Chief, Conservation Science and Practice, Columbia; Ms. Barnes Sainepo, Range Field Specialist, The Nature Conservancy, Africa; and Dr. Shahnawaz Jalil, Project Consultant, Environmental Planning at Arcadis, India. We extend our warm welcome to all the speakers. Now, here's how today's session will flow. Each speaker will present for about 10 minutes. After all five talks, we'll have a 45-minute panel discussion and Q&A. Please drop your questions in the Zoom chat during the talk. Dr. Saket Shrotri, one of our lead organizers, is monitoring the questions. He will collect them from the panel for the panel discussion and Q&A. Let us begin our speaker segment. For this, I would first like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Samir Kumar Sinha, Chief Ecologist at Wildlife Trust of India. Dr. Samir will share his personal journey, how you found your way into the NGO sector, and then speak to us about the NGO sector opportunities in green innovation. Dr. Samir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Devadeep, and thanks to ATBC Communications for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. So I will start sharing my presentation. I have few slides that I would like to share with all of you. Just can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Samir Kumar Sinha, as Devadeep has introduced. So my journey in NGO sector is about 20 plus years. I joined Wildlife Trust of India in 2003, and after that, I'm continuing with this organization. So I don't have much experience of other NGOs, but yes, based on interaction with other colleagues and friends, I can tell you about the sector in the coming 10 minutes time, which has been allocated to me. So, first of all, the most important question is uh, why did I choose this sector? So, I was doing my undergrads during 90 to 94, and you all must be knowing about this Rio summit, which happened in 1992. So most of us know about this UNCED conference, the Earth Summit, which was held during 3 to 14 June in in Rio de Janeiro, 1992. But very few of us know that at the same time, the NGO members were gathered together in the same city, that is Brazil, same country, Brazil, from 1 to 12th June, and they called it the Global Forum. Like, so it was the global forum was represented by more than 2,400 NGO representatives, and they shared their vision towards world's future in relation to environment and socio-economic development. So two conferences were running in parallel, and as far as I remember, few of the sessions were also overlapping. So when I was doing my undergrads, I came to know about this word NGO through this global forum, right? And of course, the Rio de Janeiro summit, it was a hot topic those days. So from that particular event, I came to know about this specific world, which is called, non-government organization. So before that, I was not aware of that. At the same time, there was a crisis of jobs all over the country, and at that point of time, as a youth, especially in India, when we are studying, when we are doing some course, we always look for government jobs. It is a very typical mentality of we Indians. We try to find jobs in government sector because those days there were very less opportunity in private sector, and private sector were not considered very good in the society. So everyone was looking for jobs, and there was a crisis of job in government sector. So during those crises, if someone sees NGO as non-government organizations as one of the opportunities, one of the avenues to earn livelihood or to serve to the nation or contribute to a cause, I think that was the second reason our generation got interested in non-government sector. And at the same time, there were certain influencers, like in India, the Center for Environment Education, which a center of excellence of the government, right now of it is under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So this CE was established in 1980s, 84 if I'm correct. And at the same time, there were other NGOs like Center for Science and Environment. They are pioneer NGOs in science and environment sector in India. So CSE was started in 1980s, 80 or 81, and CSE publishes a magazine which is called Down to Earth. So Down to Earth had several stories of NGO sector when we started reading this magazine in mid 1990s. So these three situations led me to introduce myself to the world of NGO as a potential avenue after doing my graduation and post graduation. And of course, in India, the boom in NGO sector was during that period. So I have collected this information from one of the news articles which says Indian society is one of the most NGOized in the world. Means NGO is was a part of our society, especially during 1990s. In the right hand side, you can see in this graph the number of NGOs were increasing during 1991 and 2000. So and we are the generation of that period. Means we were looking for jobs, we were looking for opportunity, we were trying to implement the things that we have learned in our colleges and during undergrads and postgrads. So NGO sector was a major hope for all of us. And now I will tell you about the NGO sector in especially in conservation in India. So there are several non-government organizations working across the country. I have shown few of them who are actually working in wildlife sector. Other than wildlife, there are several organizations working in environment sector or restoration sector. I have not included those. So as you know, WWF India is one of the oldest organizations established in 1970s, 73, 70, 72, 73. Similarly, prior to such organization like BNHS India was a naturalist, I would say, naturally a group of nature enthusiasts who used to devote a part of their time to explore the nature and to write something and to explain about wildlife or habitats through a journal which was published by BNHS India at that time. So it was basically not a network of professionals, but mostly amateurs, nature lovers. But in due course of time, BNHS India, developed into a very good scientific organization. Apart from that, there are several organizations, including Wildlife Trust of India, WCS India, Aranyak. So this is how our NGO sector is distributed in India, and I am showing this because these sectors provide you jobs, provides you opportunities to implement things that to do in your career or to meet certain goals of your career or to make changes in this sector in conservation. So when we talk about NGO, there are several synonyms. People say voluntary organization, civil services organization, non-government organization, not-for-profit organization. So all these things are covered under the umbrella of non-government organizations. All these have different mandates and different legal framework under which they are registered. Apart from those, nowadays there are several government-owned NGOs. NGOs means they are formally registered under certain act in India. And nowadays there are several government-owned NGOs like Tiger Conservation Foundation. So they are also they are under the government, but they are registered under Societies or Trust Act, under which other civil service organization or non-government organization or not-for-profit organizations are registered. Similarly, there are other NGOs which are called corporate NGO, like Reliance Foundation. It is a Section 8 company. So this Section 8 company allows you to do not-for-profit work. Means you cannot share the profit of the organization amongst the staff of the group of staff of the organization. And this has been possible due to implementation of an act which is called Section 8 Indian Companies Act, which started in 2013. So these are three basic frameworks. So whenever you are you're trying to get into NGO world, you need to understand whether it is a registered trust, whether it is a government-owned NGO, or whether it is a corporate-owned NGO, because all of them work in a different manner. Right? There are civil services organizations, civil society organizations, which are, include mostly, network of people, and they participate in movements, and they organize citizens for a particular cause. So as far as legal status is concerned, there are three acts which governs the non-government organizations in India. So any NGO needs to be registered under Indian Act. Otherwise, they are not eligible for getting funds or getting rebates on its income. And these three laws are the Societies Act, Indian Trust Act, and Companies Act, Section 8 company. So the main important thing is you cannot earn profit if you are registered as an NGO, even if you are registered as a Section 8 company. So during our days, it was not only job, but several youths, several qualified people, they started their own non-government organization. And you can see all these Societies Act and Indian Trust Act are very old. Means in India, the concept of NGO was always there, but they were mainly for social development and charity. Companies Act came into existence very recently, and it has changed the whole game of not-for-profit in India. Where are the opportunities lying in? So if you want to work in conservation NGO, there are scopes in species restoration, conservation of species, or recovery of species, habitat restoration, rescue, awareness, rehabilitation of wildlife crime prevention. There are policy advocacy that you can do. You can work with local communities. You can work for restoration of habitat. So these are the broad domains of conservation organizations which are working currently in India. It means if you are trying to get into NGO sector, you need to have interest in these areas. And in India, this conservation work is it's a multidisciplinary work, I would say. So means you have to do science as well as you need to understand the community part also. You need to do communication also. You need to know communication also. So when you are planning to, or if you intend to join any NGO sector, very important that your approach is multidisciplinary and you have knowledge of all these things which are basically aiming at making changes on the ground. Of course, there are several NGOs which do only research work. Like so, research organizations, in such organizations, your focus is primarily research. But when you choose conservation action organization, then you have to make changes on the ground. And what you need to be in NGO sector. So at least few of these, and more is better. So like you should be a very good planner. Physical fitness is very important in case of young entry level professionals, especially if you are going for field based activities. Data handling skills are very important nowadays because there is enormous data available, and you have to use those data sets with your primary data to make certain decisions and make certain inferences. And technical knowledge, of course, it is of paramount importance. You must know the field skill, analytical skill. Problem solving is very important when you are working in a an NGO, because when you are working in an NGO, there are several problems within the team, within the project, with the stakeholders, among the stakeholders. So problem solving is very important, and the most important part is you should value the multidisciplinary approach. If you are a biologist, you must learn the basics of communication, you must learn the basics of community interaction. Otherwise, you will not be in a position to serve to this sector in a longer run. And out of all these skills, so first, the first box are skill. Out of these, you need to be very passionate if you want to work in conservation. So passion is very important. Passion plus all these skill will make you perfect for a job in NGO sector, means beyond academia. Thanks. Now we can discuss. You have question and answer, so we will do it in the Q&A session. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samir Sinha, for your words. It was very interesting to learn all of those things, especially to learn that the idea has been known since the 1800s, and we're just it took 100 years or more to make them real. So thanks a lot for your talk. I now would like to introduce Dr. Mayuk Chatterjee from the Regional Field Program Manager at Chester Zoo in the United Kingdom. Dr. Chatterjee, please, may we invite you to begin by telling us about your personal path from the field work in India to your current role in the UK, and share with us your perspective on employment opportunities for tropical ecologists and biologists in the UK and South Asia.
Perfect. Thank you, Maria. And thank you to ATBC and Divyadip and everybody else for inviting me to this webinar. To be very honest, I hadn't prepared very much for this, but I'm very, very honored to be invited to this. I've always counted myself as somebody who's always learning, and I really still consider myself an early career person. So it's quite privileged to be invited to talk about careers. I'll be very brief about my own career because I've had a vastly meandering journey to where I am today. My passion has always been in wildlife. As a child, I was always up and about in the woods, catching insects, birds, doing all sorts of things, learning about it, taking things to my dad or somebody else who would tell me about it. So the passion was already there, but I did not really think about wildlife conservation as a child as much. I come from a family of biologists, so a lot was charted out for me. So I had to study biology, and then I was chartered to do my master's in zoology, and that is where the breaking point kind of came in. When I got into zoology, I had already learned so much of zoology from my father and my mother. I kind of did not want to do it for my master's. And so I got into zoology, then I dropped out of the course and I got into anthropology because somewhere there was an inkling about, in me to learn about human evolution as well. I'd learned a lot about nature, but I did not know where we stood as a species. So that led me to follow a master's in anthropology, which was fairly it wasn't in every college that they taught anthropology. So I somehow got into a college that was one of the oldest colleges in India, in Kolkata. And then after my master's, I went, kind of started thinking that, do I really want to work with humans? So that's when I kind of realized my original passion was somewhere, to work with nature, to work on nature, work with wildlife. And that's when I kind of was trying to find a window to get out of anthropology as well after my master's. Now, during this time, I obviously studying anthropology, which is a huge subject. I was introduced to the field of primatology, which essentially looks at non-human primates and tries to understand how culture, how society, social organization, all of that evolved. And studying reading and studying about primates, and also reading about accounts of the likes of Jane Goodall, Birut Galdikas, Diane Fossey. I was really drawn towards that, and that kind of not that I didn't love anthropology, I love anthropology even to this day, but that kind of gave me an avenue to bridge my two interests now, my long lost passion towards nature and wildlife, and then also my newfound passion in, my understanding of how societies and cultures evolved. So that led me to do a PhD in behavioral ecology on a primate species in southern India. And during this time, I spent a good number of years studying several troops of bonnet macaques, which are very common species in southern India, but in a tiger reserve. Now, once I was in the tiger reserve and spending enough time, that is when I actually kind of like came face to face with the conservation issues. And one of the main things that struck me at that time was human-wildlife conflict. And so right from then on, I've I kind of like always thought about how these conservation issues could be tackled. And of course, a lot of people have contributed in my journey. A huge number of friends who are actually studying wildlife conservation. I was fortunate to attend one of these courses at NCBS in Bangalore as well, where I learned huge amount of stuff about wildlife conservation, and that kind of really charted out my path. And then, yeah, then one thing led to another. Joined the Wildlife Trust of India. Before that, I did a bit of stint trying to work with otters after my PhD. Then got into Wildlife Trust of India and gradually started honing my focus on human-wildlife conflict and coexistence. And today, as part of the Chester Zoo's field program team, the large amount of focus that I have is on human wildlife conflict and coexistence. What I do now is essentially develop projects all across the world that kind of on different species, but largely pertaining to human wildlife conflict and coexistence, apart from a few projects that kind of look at species recovery. Now, that was my long meandering journey in a nutshell. In terms of employment opportunities, and thanks for Samir's talk, because he kind of laid out path for me to follow and also to contrast against. Um, in the UK, again, like in India, NGOs have been fairly old from, right from the 1600s. And there are a huge number of NGOs here as well. So a lot of NGOs actually have different kinds of positions that come up every now and then. So you got like the likes of, say, the Wildlife Trust, for example. They do research, they do reintroductions, they also manage different wildlife habitats across the country. Then you got RSPB, and you got, again, National Trust, which kind of looks at a multitude of things, including, again, like Wildlife Trust, some bits of land and some other wildlife issues and conservation problems as well. So all of these NGO, and then there are scores of smaller NGOs. You got the British Trust for Conservation Volunteers and British Trust for Ornithologists and loads of others. All of them have different positions, which range from, they hire ecologists, biologists, they hire statisticians, they hire rangers. They all these NGOs also have a lot of interpretation and positions that have to deal with people, visitors, and trying to impart awareness, basically, and making them more aware about the natural world, increasing connectedness with nature. So all of that also then brings in positions that require skills of, communicators, for example. Nature communicators have a big role to play in the NGO sector in the UK. And then finally, you also have the zoological and botanical gardens, again, which I'm a part of Chester Zoo, which is a zoological garden. Or a large section of the zoos also run conservation programs, especially the bigger ones. And they not only do conservation in the country, they've got like all across the world. So for example, Chester Zoo works across 6 regions, ranging from Latin America to Africa, and then Asia, Southeast Asian islands, and in the UK itself as well. And we undertake a variety of projects that span from recovering individual species, which can again be highly varied, from tiny fishes and snails to sometimes tigers or giraffes or chimpanzees. And so there's a huge gamut of stuff that these organizations do. Zoological and botanical gardens, zoological gardens especially, stand out in a big way, because they are really adept at raising their own funds for conservation. So like Chester Zoo, for example, raises a lot of money through the zoo, which then it funnels through the North of England Zoological Society into conservation projects. And again, in the zoo, we've got positions ranging from, zoo rangers, animal keepers, educators, scientists, including social scientists. So Chester Zoo, for example, is quite unique in having an entire social science unit where we look at a lot of things like behavior change, and not just, again, things that we do through the zoo, but also in different regions across the world through different projects and partners that we work with. Now, one contrast that I kind of like that stuck out from Samir's talk was where Samir spoke about multidisciplinarity and how it would benefit if everybody knows a lot about everything else. So knowing about ecology, sociology, and whatnot. So that is it's a stark contrast between India and maybe some other South Asian countries as well, and the UK. In UK, we do really greatly appreciate a multidisciplinary approach, but then we also greatly appreciate specializations. So whilst you will see most programs having a multidisciplinary approach, we respect specialization here. So for example, an ecologist will not be required to know about social science, or any other field that's required to actually be employed in a project. Rather, the project will employ specializations that cater to collective thinking and therefore developing an execution of that project, whatever that project is, whether it's conservation breeding or conservation reintroduction or working with communities. So, for example, many of my projects have trained sociologists and behavior change experts who kind of contribute to the projects, or education experts who contribute to the project in designing it and then executing it. So that was one stark difference that stood out. The second difference that also stands out between the UK and say India and some of the South Asian countries perhaps, is also the difference between say degrees and experience. Experience matters a lot in the UK. You may have a bachelor's, but if you have volunteered for 10 years in 3 different types of roles, that's given a lot of precedence. Versus if you have a lot of degrees but have very little experience. So that is a stark difference, because having been in India, I do know that degrees matter a lot, where you've got a bachelor's, master's, PhD, you get a job. But here it's quite the opposite. You've got 10 years of experience and you got a bachelor, you still get the job, which is great, I think, because it holds a balance of academic knowledge and academic prowess, but also values experience and experiential learning equally on an equal footing. So that's, I think, very important and very appreciable here on this side. Apart from that, you also have obviously the universities that not just, although we're talking about careers outside of academia, a lot of universities also have conservation programs. And so, for example, Wild Crew is a good example where they do kind of foster conservation programs and support them with good scientific thought and scientific backing as well. So I don't think it's one does definitely needs to dissect the two and keep them separate, really. I think both are very complementary to each other. And I believe conservation without good sciences, it can actually spell more ills than good, really. So I think while we are talking about careers outside of academia, I think academia is absolutely important, which then feeds into good careers and good conservation as well. So that's pretty much from me. I don't know how much I was able to capture in this time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that come about later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee, for this rich insights. Our next speaker, Dr. Carolina, Conservation and Restoration Consultant and Editor-in-Chief, Conservation Science and Practice, Colombia. Dr. Carolina, we would love for you to begin by reflecting briefly on your journey and then speak about opportunities in South America, especially within international organization and restoration projects. Over to you, Dr. Carolina.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this event. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get. You see my screen? So
We see your full screen, not only the slides.
okay. It worked out seamlessly a little bit ago. Let me try again. Share the screen. think I got myself out of the screen sharing, right?
Let's-
There we go. Okay. So again, thank you very much, Alejandra, for the invitation to participate in this event. I prepared just a couple of slides to give you a sense of where I've been. As previous speaker mentioned, a very meandering path between academia and practice. And I'm just using the word practice as to mean non-academic environment. So like most of the speakers, I started deep into academia. I did my undergraduate in Colombia as a biologist. And then I did a master's and a PhD at the University of Florida in the United States. It can't get more ivory tower than that. And when I finished my PhD, or as I was finishing my PhD, really my goal was to be an academic. I wanted to do research. I wanted to go back to Colombia and do research and in conservation or ecology in general. But at the time, jobs in academia in Colombia were very hard to get into because there were very few biology programs. And I had trained as a biologist, and all the positions were filled with people who were still in their mid-career. So the possibility of any turnover that will open up jobs was very low. And also recruitment in academia at that time, and that was back in 1991, was usually done in a very a rather in-house format. They would not advertise internationally, so it was very hard to find out about jobs in Colombia. And having been in the US for a while, I had become quite disconnected or hadn't really developed the connections that were necessary to help me land a job in Colombia. So about a year before I graduated, I started thinking that perhaps one way into getting a job back in Colombia was to try to find funding to research somehow associated with an organization. And it seemed like the best way to do this was through conservation organizations that were starting to open programs in Colombia. While World Wildlife Fund was just starting a program in Colombia. And that was basically it. Colombia had been close to a lot of international presence for many, many decades. So things were just starting to open up. And I got hold of a scholarship to an internship for a summer at Wildlife Conservation Society. And I thought that that could be an opportunity to learn more about how NGOs operated and to start establishing these professional connections. So I spent the summer at Wildlife Conservation Society the year before I graduated. And there I was lucky enough to engage in the preparation of a proposal for MacArthur Foundation that was interested in starting a program in the Northern Andes. And so I was right in the middle of it. And I was asked to include what I wanted to do in Colombia into this proposal, which eventually got funded as I was returning to Colombia with a newly minted PhD degree. So that was extremely lucky for me. And between 1993 and 2007, I was with Wildlife Conservation Society, starting the Colombia program. Along with my husband, we were working together. And this program was not a conservation program as such. This was a really difficult time in Colombia because going out in the field was very dangerous. There was a lot of guerrilla activity. The illegal drug trade was in earnest. So there were a lot of areas that were that were impossible to get into. And we established the program in a site that was safe, but also with a very strong academic emphasis. We were focusing on producing information, doing research to produce information to address some conservation problems there, to produce information for the government agencies that were managing these areas. But also we wanted to train the next generation of conservation biologists in the field doing research and also translating that information into decisions. So in this slide that I'm showing here, what I'm going to be showing is how my life changed over time and the types of jobs I had changed over time. And the way to read this is, well, from left to right, it will be like the timeline progression, but vertically, it will show how much I departed from academia, being the top being the more academic type of jobs, and the bottom one's the more practical one. So the WCS job was somewhere in between, because we were not doing conservation as such. We were not actually making decisions or being in the midst of declaring protected areas, which was the emphasis of conservation at the time, but more producing the information. So we were halfway in between. After I left WCS, I joined the Organization for Tropical Studies as a science director, and that was getting me closer to academia again. And there I was in charge of developing teams, or putting together teams of scientists to research at OTS's field stations, but I was also working with these academics in writing proposals for the National Science Foundation. So it really brought me a lot closer to academia without being a faculty member myself. While I was doing this, which was a part-time job that I was doing remotely from Colombia, with trips to Costa Rica where the field stations were, I started teaching at the new biology program at the Universidad Javeriana in Cali. It was just a program that was starting, and that's how I went back to academia to teach, but also to eventually develop the program for a master's program in restoration. I basically worked on and off as a not a full-time faculty person, but more like a lecturer, teaching the course in restoration up until this year. But at the same time, I was starting consulting work on my own. I was doing consulting work for national and international NGOs, doing basically project analysis, assessment of situation analysis, and at the same time using some of that to publish. So I was doing a lot of practical work, learning a lot about the situation of different countries in Latin America, about restoration in particular, also evaluating projects and providing some guidance to restoration projects on the ground. I was capitalizing all of my previous experience in doing this consulting work for these different clients, but also every project that I did allowed me to learn something about something else, and that kind of snowballed to give me the profile I have. And 3 years ago, I applied for a position. At the same time, I had been participating in the editorial committee of conservation biology. 3 years ago, a position was opened for the editor-in-chief of Conservation Science and Practice, which is a journal of the Society for Conservation Biology that seeks to bridge the gap between academia and practice. And so we publish papers that present solid science and solid evidence for conservation, but focused in how that information can be applied to conservation on the ground. So that's where I am right now. And as you can see, I've been having a lot of hats. I've been wearing a lot of hats throughout my life. But basically, to go back to the question of what can early career people can do about finding their path away from academia in conservation, is that, well, conservation has expanded from being a biologically focused discipline to where a lot of the work that we could do was produce information, to expanding into the social and economic aspects of conservation. So it engages people in fields such as the social sciences, political sciences, economics, administration, engineering, or communications. So if you're coming from a biological training, my advice would be to not be shy about learning the skills that some of these other disciplines have, and try to wedge yourself into in between fields. And to me, the most successful professionals are those that are actually can bridge between disciplines, can bridge between skills. And I guess in my own experience, the fact that I had a very strong academic background that I never left behind completely, but actually built upon that, complemented with a number of skills I picked up throughout my life, and the different types of jobs that I've had have allowed me to navigate this space in between academia and practice. And in the process, I've learned skills like accounting. I can read a balance sheet, for example, facilitating meetings. I've learned to manage teams effectively, manage my time more effectively, and learning some communication skills that have allowed me to connect with people on both sides. But most importantly, I've learned to listen, and listen what practitioners and what people who are in the midst of doing conservation need, to see how I can improve their lives and their work. I guess I've overrun my 10 minutes, so I think I'm going to stop here talking about management skills. And I'll stop here. Yeah, I'll catch you later at the Q&A part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolina, for that deep understanding of your path and those very important words on skills that are needed outside academia and the importance of academia outside academia. Our next speaker is Bernice Sainepo. She's in rangeland specialist at the Nature Conservancy in Africa. So Bernice, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and we would be glad if you can talk to us about your journey and about careers outside of academia, and especially conservation NGO sector in Africa. So welcome. It's over to you, Bernice.
Thanks so much. And from my side, it's good evening. And it's nice to be here. Thanks for this opportunity. So my name is Bernice Sainepo. I'm based out of Nairobi, Kenya. This is the eastern part of Africa. I work for the Nature Conservancy, which is a conservation organization centered around protection, provide, and just protection and provide and tackle climate change in different community setups. My background, I can start from, so in undergraduate, I studied in Kenya, in Africa. I did agroecology with a minor in environmental science. And then I followed up with a master's in soil science, still within the continent. And then finally, now doing my PhD, just waiting to defend. So that's why I'm a little bit different from the other panelists. Is I'm doing my PhD from the University of Bonn on invasive ecology, specifically on rangelands ecology. So with that background, I could say I'm very passionate about research, and I wanted to be in research for a very long time. However, I thought about, I've been a career student all my life. That means I went from undergrad to master's and then to PhD without a break. And then I looked at what I'm doing. I love it, the science, the science rigor, the collaborations in the lab, moving into writing and publishing. I thought, how can I leverage this into something that I can now practically see? So I'm inspired because I was inspired to transition because I'm coming from a marginalized communities. So every time I went back home, I would hear my mom asking me, oh, okay, so I have a problem with this particular thing on my farm. I have a problem with um, this particular animal that's sort of eating my crops, something like that. And then she's asking me, what do I do about it? So then that got me thinking, how then do I transition? I didn't want that disconnect between what I have studied and the realities on ground. And then, so the need for transition then was sparked. So what I did after I finished my data collection and then I started writing with my supervisor. The good thing that my arrangement for my graduate school allowed me to work from home. That means working from Kenya. And then therefore I started applying for opportunities around where I was staying. And so that's when I got the opportunity to enter into the international NGO space, which is the Nature Conservancy, which is one of the biggest conservation organizations in the world, particularly in the global south. So that's how I transitioned, or that's what rather sparked my transitioning. It took a while. I did a lot of applications. And then I had to actually have a lot of conversations with people actively in the field that I wanted to come into. So I would attend a lot of webinars like this, but I also had to be physically present in different avenues. For example, conferences, workshops. I'd share my papers, and sort of send cold emails around. So when I got an opportunity, maybe I speak to that a little bit, was that because this is like just a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, one of the things that was critical is, and the feedback that I got was, I needed to show beyond my books, beyond the lab, what else can I do? And the good thing is, and I've had a couple of the other presenters before me mentioning, is the volunteering aspect. So the good thing is, in my undergrad and in my master's, I'd go out for projects, I'd volunteer for my supervisor's work, because some of the supervisors I was working with had projects outside the university. So I had collected a little bit of experiences here and there. And that for me I was able to put that in my CV. And so in different interviews, I was able to articulate that. But that resounding feedback was the importance of experience on ground, working with different interdisciplinary projects. Well and good. So the good thing is that I was able to get into an entry-level position with a different conservation organization, and then I was able to pivot from there into the role that I'm in. So the role that I do now is within conservation is that I lead the implementation of different conservation portfolios, and the intersect is between agroecology, conservation, specifically from the angle of human-wildlife conflict, water, and this is water conservation and water governance, and people, which is people livelihoods, particularly people livelihoods that are dependent on conservation initiatives, for example, tourism, amongst other things. And so I work in one of the pioneering initiatives, global initiatives around food systems transformation within the conservation space. Why I feel the need to mention this is because you could deviate, you could have core background in very specific conservation, in the specific background in conservation space, but you can also pivot from that into different things. The good thing about now is that the world is evolving and it needs a lot of interdisciplinary aspects, and you don't have to stick to one, but rather you could complement an ongoing bigger program or project that would require your skills. So one of the skills that I brought from the research organization that I was in, so my package was that I was attached to a research organization which worked on different projects within the continent, including Tanzania, Uganda, parts of Zambia, and South Africa. So then that kind of exposure and experience helped me to be able to function in what we call the NGO space. I'm still on an early career kind of level, but then I'm able to work with communities. I'm able to see real impact on ground. I'm able to also use the research skills that I had garnered from data analysis, project or concept, project conservation, project design. Now that I'm able to now put it in actual implementation terms. What did I do that I think I should mention? One is that I sought out mentorship. I think that's very critical, whether it's within the research or outside NGO. I think complementarity is even more important, get both. Then start applying early. If you have finished data collection, you're writing, and you're almost about to defend, send out those applications. What else? Lean into your skills. That's your strength. And then lean out. What I can advise, what you should lean out is a lot of research, particularly at student level, would seemingly be narrow thinking. So when you go out into different avenues or different NGO spaces, you find they require different disciplines to accomplish a particular goal. So it will require you also to open up your mind, to learn new skills, to learn things outside your research line. For example, I was purely a natural scientist. Now I'm learning about socioeconomic aspects about conservation. I'm learning about human rights activities within this particular space. I'm looking at how then can we leverage sustainable financing and so on and so forth. So that kind of, I was able to open up my mind, and I'm learning so many things. And now I see that I can actually cross sectors in different programs and in different projects, whether within this organization and outside this organization. I've been able to sit in different panels in interview processes, and one of the resounding feedbacks that we also give is seeing PhD students when they speak or when they have these interviews is speak to what your research will do, as opposed to just focusing on the classic methodology, research, result, statement, hypothesis, but speak broadly more into what kind of impact, because the world wants to see impact, what it can do for the people around you, for the environment around you, or for the communities that you're working with. So for me, that is critical. I've been able to, and I do advise a lot of students that are leaving, and some, because I still do contribute to some researches for master students in my alumni university here in Nairobi. Build community, build your own network. Now, even as a student, seek out people outside academia. For you to be able to transition, one of the statements I always say is, more often than not, people employ people either they have met or they've heard about. So go out of your comfort zone, go out of the lab, quote unquote, and reach out and build those networks that will be able to push you or pivot you into new jobs or opportunities that are available. Again, research is still important. So whichever way you decide to swing, I would advise for you to build your own community and enjoy whilst you're a student, because outside here also it's also a whole new ballgame. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sainipur, for your wonderful insights. You have highlighted some very important points, which I'm sure everyone is going to take home today. Um, our final speaker today for today's webinar is Dr. Shahnawaz Jalil, Project Consultant, Environmental Planning at Arcadis India. Dr. Jalil, requesting you to begin by telling us about your transition from ecological research into environmental planning, and then share your thoughts on opportunities in the corporate and consultancy sectors. Over to you, Dr. Jalil.
Thank you. Thank you, Dipadeep. I would firstly start by thanking the ATBC Capacity Building Committee for this opportunity. Yeah, my name is Shahnawaz Jalil. I'm currently a consultant with Arcadis in the environment planning team. Like most of the speakers, I started out doing a bachelor's and then a master's and a PhD in wildlife science. So from early on, I was interested in understanding animal behavior and distribution and how do we conserve the rich biodiversity that we have. I did my PhD from the Wildlife Institute of India, which was a major turning point where getting an opportunity to work and research and then also get a PhD from the institute did wonders to my career, actually. I was involved in a long-term tiger recovery project, which taught me, various lessons on surveying wildlife and analyzing data, communicating with stakeholders, and then presenting research to wider audience. I was interested to go on to a full-time job in research and pursue a career in academia, but as life happened, when I was completing my PhD, I felt a little different. The chief points that hit me was the difficulty in securing long-term jobs within academia. So most of the jobs that, especially that I was getting the opportunities in, were very short term. And so I was always worried about what do I do next. A great help at that time of transition was Twitter. Now, Twitter was exploding at that time with people who were transitioning from academia and talking about alternate careers. They were using different hashtags, alt-ac and similar stuff. I think the threads are still going on, but I mean, currently I don't really follow them, but at that time it was very, very helpful. So I followed those people and conversed with people. And then I saw that there were so many opportunities for people, not just within biology or conservation sector or ecologists, but everyone from engineering to humanities to physics and many more fields. A lot of the people were transitioning from academia to the corporate space, to finding jobs in the industry. So and then I thought, why not seek out? Why not learn about this space and explore, acquaint myself how I can transition my skills from that I learned from academia, from my basic research to an industry setup. I realized that biodiversity experts are in great demand and valued in all sectors, be it IT or construction, design, government think tanks, not just in India, but globally in all of the countries. Biodiversity experts are now very, very much in demand. I'd just like to highlight what I've sort of learned, and I'm still trying to learn about this transition and how I can, go on with in a fulfilling career, is the two key things that helped me uh, transition was one. All of the speakers spoke about it. Is upskilling, is doubling down on the skills that we currently have. Academia is such a wonderful platform where you gain, you gain expertise, you gain skills in so many different things. And one of the things that I did was understand what skills I was good at, and then what were the skills that were being valued in different sectors in different industry. So and that helped me transition. So I did not just stick to basics of ecology, but I tried understanding what different jobs and what were the different sectors that ecologists were also involved in. To do that, there are a lot of courses available nowadays, most of them free, some of them very inexpensive courses that we can take to upskill ourselves. So upskilling, I would highlight, is one of the major things that helped me transition. The second is not framing yourself and attaching myself to a particular skill or title or a job. The key is, I realize, is to keep evolving and learning, and that will only happen when we are comfortable to be uncomfortable. So, and then opportunities will always find us when we upskill ourselves, have a broad horizon, and grasp how society is changing. In terms of the corporate sector, these sectors are, evolving at a rapid pace, and so we need to understand what are the skills that people within academia can bring to bring to the corporate space. So as previous speakers highlighted, as in the world is now in need of practice and actual not just research, but also delivering tasks. And then, so what I want to say is having a broadened horizon for yourself and learning which skills to leverage. Of course, it all depends on personal preference, but having a broad spectrum of what you want to do and what opportunities there lie. So I just like to highlight a few of the different sectors that I see are evolving within the corporate space. Firstly is ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. I'm sure all of you have heard of this, where I mean, a lot of the companies and almost all of the companies are now working on their environment, their social, and their governance goals, where ecologists like us can gain different skills of assessing and working on due diligence and reporting of the different environmental activities that the different companies are doing. And so, and then there's sustainability consultants who get involved in assessments and ratings for different companies. They also advise companies that the steps they can take to meet their sustainability goals. Some companies have their own set sustainability goals. Some follow the national standards or some international standards as well. The third one is EHS, which is environment, health, and safety. Again, this is what I've seen is a lot of engineers work in this sector, but there's no limits to how a person who has a background in research in ecology, I mean, they can also transition, learn what is environment, health, and safety, what do companies actually want, and then also ecologists. I mean, professional ecologists are being hired globally, from surveying to assessing, to identify the risks that biodiversity faces in the face of a very, very fast evolving world. So professional ecologists are also very high in demand. There are a lot of jobs in the climate change sector, as we all know. So again, there's no limit to different. There's a lot of different sectors that are opening up. So in general, what I wanted to share was the opportunities that we have, and then what the work that we do. I want to highlight is the work that people who transition and work in consultancy are. We work mainly on due diligence, surveying, analyzing data. Some previous speakers talked about big data. There's a lot of data in different sectors: biodiversity, loss of biodiversity, credits have a lot of data that need interpretation. We also work on reporting and then consulting with clients about how they can go ahead with their projects, but also have a balance and protect the rich biodiversity as well. So yeah, I talked about the different courses. If you Google, you'll find a lot of courses. One key tool, like almost all of us are already using, I'm sure, is LinkedIn. Like Twitter, LinkedIn also helped me a lot. So I did not use it only to apply for jobs, which I did, of course, a lot of jobs I applied for, but to network and post relevant posts that helped me gain visibility in a wider forum. And so people were noticing what is this person saying about, and it doesn't need to be we don't need to be experts in everything to share, but we can share our thoughts about a relevant piece, a relevant some government action that's being taken. So the world is always interested to know different perspectives, and LinkedIn is a really great platform to boost that. So yeah, I would like to sum up my short talk by saying that recognizing the relevant skills and adapting or upskilling in relevant upskilling in relevant skills is a key point. And then and when I talk about skills, it's always both soft and hard skills. So polishing both of them, not just technical skills, but also human skills of communicating, of of communicating, of dealing with people, managing teams. So a well-rounded approach is always best suited to land different opportunities. Thank you so much. I'd like to complete my talk with that.
Thank you very much for a very different perspective in jobs outside academia, especially the importance of using the media, the LinkedIn and other platforms, on and different ways that scientists can get onto the corporate world. That was very insightful, and sometimes it just misses the student doing a PhD. So I would like to have a question for everyone, but maybe Bernice can start answering. I'll request that you try to be short in your answers so that we can go through a few questions in the time we have remained. Maybe if maybe we get over our 2 hours, but we'll try to make and keep it to the scheduled time. So the question is, what were the challenges when you apply for the non-academic job? So what were the skills that you have really to show up, and how did you present yourself to the non-academic world so that you could really land that job? So Bernice, can you start?
Yes, sure, I can start. Allow me to keep my video off for now. So yes, so one of the things that I'm from my experience, but also from sitting on panels that are interviewing PhD candidates is one, communication. You've spent 4 or 5 years communicating in a certain way, and it has to be slightly different now because there is a lot of deep scientific jargon. So you'd have to communicate in a way that would appeal to mostly an interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary kind of panel and kind of job. Another thing that I would emphasize and insist on is packaging responses, particularly, first of all, let me step back a bit. Collect as much experience, on-ground experience beyond your field work. Volunteer, seek out opportunities to work with real scenarios and real people on ground. Then once you have that, as you're articulating it either on your CV or on a panel, you'd be able to use that as practical examples for real, and I use the word real in quotes, because of course your research is real, but when you have project management with dealing with real projects on ground, you'd have to have experience. They're always looking, most jobs are looking for experience, especially in the NGO space. So then learn to communicate in a way different from the line of research. They want to see practical examples, working with communities, particularly in conservation. That's my experience. And then they also want to you to think beyond your research line. So also gather information and experiences outside your specific line of work, whether it's wildlife conservation or agroecology. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. Dr. Mayuk, can you share with us your perspective?
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Well, to be honest, I mean, it's hard for me to tell what skill really I had beyond, what I got from academia that kind of landed me my first job. But I can tell you about what I think, what academia gave me that helped me land my first job. And I think that would be common for a lot of people in academia, because academia teaches you to ask the right questions and find a way to answer those questions. And conservation world is not very different from that, because you are in the conservation sector, you are asking questions that why is the species disappearing, or why is the habitat degrading, and how do I really address that? You are planning for action. So I think academia does teach you planning, how you develop those questions into a research project, and therefore find the answers, and therefore find solutions. It's pretty much the same in conservation, and I think that is a skill that's quite indispensable, I think, just to be able to ask the right questions and develop your conservation projects around that. And I think that if one can hone that skill, and even to this day, I think I use that very skill to its fullest in designing and executing projects, conservation projects all across the world. So yeah, so I wouldn't really tease it out separately, I guess. I think academia is giving a very valuable skill, and I think people who are in academia need to kind of focus on developing that skill to design projects, good projects that answer the questions properly and find the right answers, I guess.
Thank you very much, Mayuk. Sometimes we think that we have to get rid of all what we learned to learn a totally new field. So, Dr. Singha, do you have anything you want to share with us?
Yes, definitely. So, especially when we talk about conservation, we need to leave beyond our academic world, because there are several interacting problems, there are several interacting drivers which are creating certain kind of problem that a conservation project aims to solve, right? So we should be very logical in identifying those problems and the causes of those problems, because in my opinion, conservation talks about solving the problem. Research will definitely give you the right answer to a particular question, but when we talk about conservation, you need to work with different kinds of stakeholders, different kinds of players, different kinds of influencers, because only academic knowledge will not help you winning the confidence of others, right? So you need to have certain skills. Maybe like if you are working at a landscape level conservation work, conservation project, you need to have very good negotiation skill, And many a time you can't say that I'm a biologist or I'm a sociologist, I'm an anthropologist. The stakeholder would like to hear from you in terms of answer to their questions. So you should be ready with that. Yeah, means think logically, then connect the dots which are in the conservation problem, identify the problems and drivers very meticulously. Uh, of course, answering to a question is very important for which we are trained during our academics. And second important is if you understand the question, if you understand the problem, how will you plan and implement the project? You are very good in academics, you are very good in designing the project, but implementation is the most important part that we need to take care of. And unless you have expertise and knowledge and experience of on ground implementation, it is very difficult to even monitor those who are implementing within your hierarchy. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sinha. And Dr. Carolina, it's your turn.
Thank you, Alejandra. When you're looking for a job outside of academia, you need to be aware that the strategy to actually even be invited for an interview is completely different outside of academia. We've been trained on how to apply for academic jobs, and applying for jobs outside of academia is a completely different game with completely different rules. To start with, you don't submit a CV, you submit a resume. The letter in which you present yourself and with which you apply for a job is written in a completely different language. And if you land an interview, if you get invited for an interview, the types of questions that you'll be asked are completely different from the type of questions you'll be asked for an academic position. So my advice, and I'm just repeating what I got from my brother who's in the corporate world the first time I was going to apply for a non-academic job, was familiarize yourself with the rules of looking for jobs and presenting yourselves when you apply for a job. And there are lots of resources out there, books, websites, etc., that will give you an idea of how to best present yourself, present your skills. I'm assuming that you've already done the research about the organization that you're applying to or the job that you're applying for, and have checked that your skills align with what they need, not what you have, not necessarily what you think it's important, but what you perceive as their needs, and then prepare a good resume and a good letter of presentation. For me, it was very important to have the advice of my brother. So my suggestion would be to try to find yourself a mentor outside of academia that can lead you, can guide you through those steps, and can teach you sort of the more subtle aspects of applying and for a job and conducting an interview.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murcia. And we'll last but not least, next time we'll call you first, Shanawa. So go ahead and
Yeah, I would resonate with all of the speakers, actually. One of the key things I learned during the interview process was problem solving, and then impromptu sort of understanding of, because when I was interviewing, I've also been fortunate enough to be in some of the recruitment interviews, and I've seen candidates fumble around. I mean, they have great CVs, great background in research or academia, but then to the corporate world, to the stakeholders, to clients, it's always key to understand problem solving. And then one of the good things that was on my CV was some papers that I had written, and then they were interested to know about the papers, but explaining those technical academic papers in a corporate language was the key, was one of the keys to get into the jobs. So yeah, problem solving, and like Carolina had highlighted different CVs. You know, there are a lot of courses available. I was not fortunate enough to, get a mentor, but then there was a lot there were a lot of online forums that helped me. So how do we draft a CV, and then what is the difference between a CV and a resume, and then how do you highlight, you know, go skills or expertise tailored specific to that job, is all matters. I mean, we always I mean, I did that, where I would send the same resume to different jobs, but then later I realized that to get a job, especially in the corporate sector, there has to be a skill match. They have to understand that, they have to have that belief that this person can do the job. I mean, the training part, they can train you, but then they don't really want to, train a newbie. They want someone who can actually do the job. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much for all your insights. I think there were some things in common and some that were new from each one of your perspectives from your different paths. So I'll pass it on to Divya Deep, who has some more questions for you.
Um, so, thank you, Maria. So, my question is for all, that how do you, it was mentioned that we need to upscale, we need to have additional trainings, some skill building to ease our transition. But can you mention some specific, specific training or skill set that is versatile and that might work in across different sectors? And I would, for this, I would request Dr. Chatterjee to begin the discussion.
Hi, thanks, Deputy. Uh, yes, I think somebody picked on this earlier as well. I think one skill that is, I mean, of course, the skills vary depending on the kind of role you are looking at. So, for example, if you're applying for a managerial position, it would be different skills. But one thing I think that kind of like uh, can work across sectors is, I think, communicating properly, especially like coming from academia. We use a lot of jargon, and then being able to simplify that and talk about it in very simple ways, I think really helps, because in academia we end up growing in amidst closed walls, thinking that everybody thinks like this and everybody is accustomed to this jargon, which they are not. The larger part of the world does not understand much of the stuff that we talk about in our day-to-day lives in academia. And I think that is a skill, I think, that can be picked up. I was very fortunate because my PhD in the National Institute of Advanced Studies was so multidisciplinary. I had to be, in my different talks, I was kind of like had to talk to an audience, half of whom were historians or literature people from the field of literature. And then I really had to train myself to break my the difficult bits down to very in very simple language and convey it successfully. So I think if we can garner that skill, I think that can be applicable across sectors, and it'll be hugely useful even in interviews. For example, if somebody's asked like, okay, what did you do for your PhD, to be able to answer that in very few simple sentences and words, I think is absolutely crucial. So yeah, that's that bit from me. Of course, there are other bits like managerial skills and stuff, but it's hard to kind of get that kind of skill in academia. But yeah, if one has an opportunity, I think that's hugely helpful as well, because conservation aims at big things, and big things can be achieved with big teams. I cannot do it myself, so I need to work with 10 people or more. And then to be able to work with those 10 people, I need to have good inculcated good managerial skills as well. So I think that's the second one from me, really. Thank you.
Dr. Musia, would you like to share your insights on this?
Yes, thank you, Divya. Just to build up upon what Mayuk was saying, I think that one skill that actually I got from academia, but that proved to be extremely useful in my career, was the capacity to see the big picture and to analyze a problem from different angles. And so that skill or that ability has allowed me to work with interdisciplinary teams trying to understand the problem from their perspective. And that has allowed me to lead these teams where I have all sorts people from all sorts of disciplines. And also the ability to identify missing areas, areas that require more attention, and also to think strategically when you look at the project. What is it? What's missing? What needs to be developed? Because that will allow you to propose areas where you can grow the project or you can improve the project and how you can insert yourself into developing that. So that makes you a very valuable person for that organization.
Thank you, Dr. Carolina, for your insights on this. I would request Shanavas to share his insights as well.
Uh, yes, thanks, Deepadeep. I think in terms of skills, what I feel is technically, because we've done our masters or PhDs, technically almost everyone is very sound. But what happens is difficulty that we get, what I faced was the human skills, the soft skills. This Dr. Mayo talked about managing teams. So it's a big, projects are multidisciplinary, and getting everyone to work on a same task is a big task. So things like that. Other things I would say which have helped me are, in terms of communication and, thinking logically and critically, breaking down points of what actually the client wants, what the task is, and then having and always having an attitude of providing value. So not just do the basics, but also go above and beyond and say, this thing can be done much better, and I have a way we can do it. And people are very appreciative of this fact, and that's it's going to help. That has helped me, and that I believe that will help people to move ahead in their careers.
Thank you, Shanavas. I would request Dr. Rapasina to share his insights on this.
Yeah, thanks, Divyadeep. So here I would put before you, all of you, uh, myself as a recruiter, because in our organization we recruit, every month we are recruiting, we are interviewing several candidates. So what I see that people apply, they without any even assessing whether they are suitable for the position or not, right? So my suggestion would be apply for the position only if you are suitable for that. Like if someone is asking 5 years of experience, and if you are a fresher, please do not apply for such positions. As a recruiter, what we assess during the recruitment process, that uh, despite the candidate not having a particular skill set, we try to assess whether he or she can perform that job or not. Many a time, you will not get any candidate having the skills that you really require. So at that point of time, we need to understand, we try to identify the strengths of the candidate, and that strength should be reflected in your CV. Right now, what we see, like most CVs are created using chat GPT and AI, which I would really suggest the all newcomers, or those who are desiring to be in, especially in NGO world, they should not use this AI skill, AI tools to develop their CD. Write whatever you are, be honest in writing or presenting your things. Second important thing, sometimes do a very small course, 2 or 3 days course, and based on that, we think that now I have become expert of that particular course and then or that particular subject, and then we start looking for job in that line. It is not correct, right? You have to be very confident on what you have learned. Unless you are very confident, you won't be in a position to defend yourself before the candidate, before the interview panel, or before the organization. I'm talking mainly from the NGO perspective. Of course, when we recruit, we always look for a person who knows team management, right? Or who is a team player at least. So maybe like we ask questions, what kind of sports games you prefer or we play or you like. If someone is, someone's preference is lawn tennis, and someone's preference, the other guy's preference is football, definitely we'll go for football because football is a team play, team game. So team player is very, very, very important. And for higher levels, means mid level, in NGO sector, definitely we would like to recruit someone who is capable of doing multitasking, because resources are very constrained in NGO sector. So you have to communicate what you have done. You have to do the things in a very professional manner, and you have to manage your budgets, you have to manage your stakeholders. So all these skills are important for mid to senior level positions, and for entry level positions I have already.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. Now I would request Bernice to share her insights as well.
All right. I think to just run the risk of reiterating everything, I will speak to just one thing, which is developing that skill of systems thinking beyond one line and just thinking about how potential of inputs, either within the job or outside the specific position. I think also on learn to articulate what you see specifically around the needs of the communities or the what we call the ecosystem that either you're applying for. Look at it beyond just one research line, and then communicate that. Most NGOs are always looking at impact stories. So then learn to communicate then beyond that research line.
Thank you, Bernice. I would now request Maria to ask the next question.
Well, I'm going to take a question from the audience. Manuela Rueda asked, does transition to work in an NGO represent a cost in terms of not being as up-to-date as a full-time researcher in academia regarding the latest methods and literature? I guess her main point was, would it made it difficult to go back to academia at some point? So she's interested in knowing, if you start with the NGO path, how it would be to go back to academia. What skills do you need to keep up to date, and what skills might you lose if you want to go back to academia? So I'll ask, as I promised, Shanawaz to give us his insights.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I think it was specifically about the NGO sector, but I would say from the corporate sector, um, I do not feel that there'll be a cost. Yes, of course, he'll be doing varied things. He'll be doing a lot of different things than what you do in actual academia. But I don't think that there is a cost involved. People who who've been in corporate settings for a long time, I've seen examples of them also going back to taking, academic jobs, being professors, associate professors. So in terms, there is a cost, maybe in terms of time, where you'll have to constantly keep updating yourself. If you want to, switch back again, I would feel that the effort that we made to transition, again, to make that transition back, there'll also be some effort. So.
Thank you very much. Bernice, do you have any insights you would like to share?
Unfortunately, because I'm in academia, then was shifted out of NGO, so I could pass on this.
I missed the last part.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I will not be the best person to respond to this question.
Okay, so Dr. Murcia, do you have any insights?
Yeah, I guess that more than a cost, you can see it as a trade-off. It's impossible that you can keep up with the latest developments and with the literature that is being produced at the same time that you're focusing on these other types of activities and these other types of skills. So basically, you're reducing your capacity to stay up in your original field or your academic interests at the same time that you're doing this other job. However, you are gaining a lot of skills and you're gaining a lot of experience that you could eventually be able to teach about returning to academia. But you can expect that the types of jobs that you could apply to in academia would be different from where you perhaps started as a scientist. But one thing that I think it's important to keep up if you want to keep that door open, which is hard to, is to keep publishing and keep being involved in collaborative work that gives you a paper track, because otherwise it's going to be very, very difficult. Now, I think that going back to academia into a developing world, a developed country will be much harder because of the types of parameters that they use to evaluate you. In developing countries, I think it's a lot easier to land a position in academia because they are much more open to these more interdisciplinary type of profiles. But you might not go back to a position in basic sciences, but perhaps a position in conservation that values this interdisciplinary profile that you are developing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murcia. I think the publishing track is very important for the academic world. If you miss that, it's very difficult to be. I would say that in other jobs, they would look at your skills, but in academic, they would look at your publishing record. So, Dr. Sinha, can I have some insights from you?
Yes, thanks. So, if someone is interested both in academia and then NGO, so in my opinion, even when you are working with any NGO, you can keep in touch with academics also, like collaboration. If you can collaborate with some institutes, some colleges, which keep you updating yourself in terms of latest developments or publications. And there are ample opportunities in NGO sector to publish your findings. The problem is generally in NGO sector we do not get much time to publish our results or our learnings. That is one of the major bottlenecks because NGO world is completely different. You have to raise your funds for yourself, right? that is one of the very crucial tasks for a non-government organizations. And while doing so, you often miss to publish your learnings and your experiences. But still, if you want to do, if you want to switch over at some point of time in your life to academics, you can get in touch with academics, definitely. Because in India, I can say that like we are always working with, colleges and universities. So which keeps us connected with the academics as well. And things may change, but ideally, I think once you choose path of NGO means once you are going to solve certain problems, better you do not switch off to the academia, because the mindset is completely different. NGO is not only your skills, it is much beyond that. Passion, making change, to make change, please don't enter into NGO world, I would say. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh. I think Dr. Mayuk left us, so I'll pass it on to Divya for the next question.
Thank you, Maria. So the next question, there are two questions actually for Dr. Murcia. The first is if you could um, talk about the contrast between the mindset of a researcher that owns a project and that of a non-academic where projects live beyond the presence of a leader or a different person. And the second part that we have from our from our audience is from Viviana. It's a bit I think it's different topic altogether. But I'll just ask you: do you recommend getting an ACR certificate to look for jobs in restoration ecology?
Okay, thank you, Viviadi. So the first, to address the first question, one thing I learned fairly early in my professional exercise was that we are trained as academics to own a project. We think of an idea, we get the funding, and we do the research, and everything is here in our minds. There is some paperwork associated with that, so the project is written up in a proposal, but everything that happens during the execution of that project is pretty much in your mind. So what happens often in academia is that if a professor retires or dies, the project basically ends there, unless there was somebody in that lab that got the training and also got the projects in their mind and was able to carry it on. Outside of academia, however, projects are not your own. They are the institutions. So one of the things that I've seen academics struggle with all the time is that we don't have the skills to keep a paper track of what we do, write down procedures, protocols, and all sorts of documents that will allow the project to persist once you're out of that position. And outside of academia, moving happens often, So one big set of skills that I recommend people who are stepping out of academia to acquire is to actually learn from managers and administrators how to keep this paper trail on how to write down what you're doing, the policies and all the documents, especially when you're starting in a new position or a new project and none of that is already written down. So these are two completely different types of mindsets. In academia, the project is yours, you own it. Outside of academia, it's not. So you need to make sure that the project survives after you're gone. And as to the second question, the Society for Ecological Restoration, just to give a little bit of context, offers the possibility of getting a certification as a restoration practitioner. It's a program that started focused on developed countries, US, Australia, Europe, and now they're trying to open it up to developing countries. It does help to the extent that it connects you with network of people who are doing restoration all over the world, but also it gives you a competitive edge. In developing countries, companies or NGOs that are looking for a restoration practitioner rarely ask for these types of certifications, but I do think that it gives you a competitive edge, and it also puts you in a separate, I would say, elite work. It separates you a little bit from the general public, and you can capitalize on that if you make it very visible on your resume. It also forces you to keep updating yourself to maintain that certification. So yes, I would recommend that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murcia. Maria, I think we have time for another question. We can go ahead with that.
Well, I think a couple of our speakers have left us. Maybe they have other, it's about time. But let me ask, what has been the most rewarding part of your life as a practitioner or as outside of academia? What has been something that you think you may have missed if you stayed in academia and has been really that you're very thankful for being achieved in this world outside academia? Dr. Singha. Dr. Singha, did you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, there are several occasions which really make me feel very happy, like which cannot happen or which is very difficult to happen when you are in academia. Suppose I work with local communities to recover a population of any critical endangered species or endangered species or threatened species, and you are engaging your key stakeholder, means the local people, right? And after your efforts of 2 or 3 or 4 years, the communities learn the skills to save the target species. Say, for example, here I would like to give one example, like in one of our project areas, we trained our local villagers to protect the nest of threatened crocodilian, and they were trained to create nests to incubate those incubate some nests which are prone to get eroded due to river shifting or river erosion. And after through 2 to 3 years, when I saw that 5 or 6 community local members, they have learned how to protect X of a particular species, I am very much satisfied, because I am not going to be there for lifelong. The local community who are the local custodians, the area is outside protected area, they have learned the skills, they are owning the species and its habitat. And once they learn all these things, I think that day made me very happy, feel very happy. And there are several such examples when you work in conservation with NGOs.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shanawaz?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there are quite a few things that I really enjoy currently in my corporate career. I think it's also a virtue of the company that I'm currently working at, is the type of work-life balance that I currently enjoy. I don't and the people culture that we have. I mean, I'm not saying that academia does not have it, but I mean, when I was a PhD student, there was a lot of pressure, and maybe at that time I enjoyed the pressure. But there comes a time in our lives where we want kind of a family and we have responsibilities. So that's kind of helping me to the thing. The other thing that I would say professionally is to see the actual practice that you mentioned is. So I was to give you a small example. So I was working on there's this overbridge that they were trying to build in the UK. and it was a train project. And then because of the presence of important bat species, we had to undergo a lot of assessments and then take out a lot of licenses for that bridge to be created. That bridge has not been created as yet, but that bridge has now called a green overbridge. And then green overbridges are big overbridges where you plant trees all along the overbridge so that the bats don't really mistake the bat flight lines, and then those bat flight lines are intact. So the process that overbridge is not built yet, but that 3D model is out, and it just feels good, fulfilling that something that we worked on is now or in the future is going to be a reality. Of course, there are different disciplinaries involved, different engineers involved, different architects involved, but the inputs of ecologists and environmental planners in that project was key.
Thank you so much, Shanawaz. And last, Carolina, you want to share?
Thank you, Alejandra. Well, I guess it's very hard to think, envision what your life could have been if you stayed in academia. We have all these perceptions of what could have, but what I would say is that I've enjoyed my journey a lot. I've learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of skills. Um, I don't regret the path I've taken. Um, I've always approached it with a passion for learning and expanding my understanding of how the world operates. I guess you can do that in academia as well, as you research a specific system or our area of knowledge. I think they're just different ways of doing things, but every reward that I think I've gotten in the jobs that I've had, I think I could have gotten something equivalent in academia. So I don't think one is better than the other. They're just different. And as long as you adapt and are flexible and are willing to learn, you'll enjoy every step of the way. But one thing that I think the world outside of academia provides is a little bit more flexibility about being able to move between jobs. And so if at some point you're unhappy about the work that you're doing or curious about something else, you have a lot more flexibility to move about than if you're in academia.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Before I pass it on to Divya for the thank you words, I think we're over time. Is I would like to special thanks to the people who organized this. Special thanks to Vinita Goda and to Yeni Wampamba and Novi Cordero for giving us the startup with this webinar. And I want to especially recognize Dr. Saket Chaudhry and Divya Dip, who are young scientists and put together this incredible set of speakers and made this all possible. So it's all for your last words, Divya Dip.
Thank you, Maria. Now, as we draw this intriguing conversation to a close, I would end it. I would like to end it with a formal vote of thanks to everyone who made this webinar possible. First of all, I would like to thank our five distinguished speakers. Thank you for generously sharing your time, your journeys, and your insights. Your words today have helped open new ways of thinking about careers and conservation. To our global audience, thank you for your time, your curiosity, and your presence. We hope today's session offered new perspectives, sparked ideas, and helped you feel supported on your professional journey. We are grateful to Ms. Maga Gay and the entire ATBC Communications and Technical team for ensuring the smooth promotion and seamless delivery of this webinar. We are also deeply grateful to Mr. Abhishek Thakur for creating the vibrant and striking visual design for our event poster. A recent master's graduate from ISER Bhopal, Abhishek lent his creative brilliance to this event while simultaneously preparing to submit his thesis, an incredible reflection of his skill, commitment, and professionalism. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Maria Alejandra Jaramillo, co-chair of ATBC Capacity Building Committee and my co-moderator and one of the lead organizers of this webinar alongside Sakit and myself for her insightful guidance and unwavering support throughout the process. Despite an exceptionally busy schedule, she remained fully engaged and committed at every step. Her leadership, perspective, and encouragement were instrumental. Sakit and I would have been lost without her. Finally, I would sincerely thank my wonderful colleague Dr. Sakit Shrotri for his indispensable contribution in organizing and conducting this event from the inception of the webinar. Sakit's dedication, energy, enthusiasm, and attention to detail have been truly commendable. Um, Now, I would like to end by saying that conservation is a collective effort and there is space for each of us within academia, beyond it, or somewhere in between. We hope this conversation is just the beginning of many more to come. Before we sign off, we are pleased to let you know that a recording of this webinar will be available on the official ATBC YouTube channel, so feel free to revisit and share it with colleagues who could not join us live. Thank you once again for being here. Take care, stay curious, and have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.